the magical world of video games, there are titles that ask some difficult questions. What does it mean to be alive? Are my motivations righteous? Am I being used? Far Cry 5 asks a different question. Can I be pecked to death by an enraged turkey? Of course, I'm selling it short. This is not the focus of the game, but it's an ideal way of representing Far Cry's chaotic nature. A franchise known for its big, impressive worlds, overflowing with side content of various nature and also giving players freedom in exploration. What started as an impressive display of open-world design in gaming, after many years became stale and outdated. Ubisoft, developers responsible for this franchise, decided to stick to this open-world formula. They also enforced it on their other franchises, homogenizing all of their titles in terms of design. So, what is this Ubisoft formula? By the way, this is going to be my personal description, not some official wiki definition, as I think nothing like that even exists. First of all, Ubisoft game design is very formulaic. We start with an impressive open world, then the world is going to be split into regions. The next step is to design categories of side content, like for example some simple side missions, escort quests, maybe a couple racing events, some hunting missions, some enemy outposts or strongholds for the player to conquer. You know, standard open world stuff. Then create some random events to pop up from time to time, ambushes, rescuing prisoners or destroying some enemy property. After that, just gently sprinkle all the content into the open world and puff! You have created an Ubisoft world. Then just pick a theme, create main story and scatter it across various zones. I know that not only Ubisoft designs games in such a way, but it is Ubisoft that strongly relies on this formula, and also it is the French studio that heavily propagated it. You can even see how some Ubisoft developers take for granted that their style of designing worlds and exploration is the only right choice based on their tweets after Elden Ring got praised for its world building. So I have quite a rich history of Ubisoft titles. I adored the company back in time when they revived Prince of Persia franchise. I played first Splinter Cell games. I absolutely loved both Pandora Tomorrow and Chaos Theory. You know, I was actually pretty happy when Ubisoft secured the rights to Heroes of Might and Magic franchise. And I still claim that Heroes 5, with all its expansion packs, is a great game. But then something broke. The latest Heroes games are just a cruel jokes. Most new games are very similar in design. As I said, the Ubisoft formula, right? Yes, of course, there are small snippets of creativity within the studio, Riders Republic, For Honor, but most of their big budget titles are getting very samey. And let's not forget about allegations of abusive workplace environment. I'll link some YongYea videos in description if you want to follow this rabbit hole. It all led me to actually despise this company. I still played a lot of Assassin's Creed games and even tried some previous Far Cry games. What I want to say is that I perceive Ubisoft titles as a form of guilty pleasure, mindless fun. I know what to expect based on their design patterns, so I know what I'm getting into. There is usually a decent production quality and it's fun to, you know, complete content checklist from a big world map, at least for me. Of course, there can be some surprises from time to time. I actually really liked Assassin's Creed Origins. I did delayed review about it. Hashtag shameless plug. To close up this introductory part, this is not only a review of Far Cry 5, but also an analysis of Ubisoft design patterns in their recent big budget titles. If you are interested in those topics, then let's roll with delayed review Far Cry 5. This review is based on 50 hours spent in game, completing the base game on hard difficulty, completing all missions in every region, as well as destroying all cult properties and liberating cult outposts. Needless to say, I have recruited every companion. I have also played each DLC for Far Cry 5 and completed it at least once. I accumulated 53 achievements out of 70 total achievements for the game. I have played every main Assassin's Creed game till AC Origins. When it comes to Far Cry games, I played a little bit of the first one and I fully completed Far Cry 4. Never touched the third game because I got it completely spoiled for me, so there was no reason to play it anymore. I'm saying all of that because I will use some of AC and Far Cry games as points of reference in the review. Okay, that's all. Let's venture into the misty mountains and lush forests of Montana's Hope County.
And then I started seeing it everywhere I looked, all these fucking pricks. Everywhere I looked, doing the exact same fucking thing. Over and over and over and over and over again. Thinking, this time, it's gonna be different. No, please. This time, it's gonna be different. I'm sorry. I don't like the way you are looking at me. Okay? You have a fucking problem in your head. Do you think I'm bullshitting you? Do you think I'm lying? Fuck you! Okay? Fuck you! It's okay, man. I'm gonna chill, hermano. I'm gonna chill. The thing is, alright? The thing is I killed you once already. And it's not like I am fucking crazy. It's okay. It's like water under the bridge. Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity? Oh, Jesus.
Since Far Cry 3's great commercial success and an enormous impact that Michael Mando's Vaz did as a memorable villain in gaming landscape, Ubisoft tried to create a new twisted yet charismatic antagonist in each new main release of the franchise. In Far Cry 4 we got Pagan Min. In Far Cry 5 we will deal with Joseph Seed, who is a dangerous cult leader.
They will try to take from us, take our guns, take our freedom, take our faith. We will not let them.
Sheriff, come on. Hold on.
We will not let their greed, or their immorality, or their depravity hurt us anymore.
So the game takes place in a fictional Hope County, a mostly rural area with a great dose of rivers, lakes, mountains and coniferous forests. This whole zone is placed somewhere in the beautiful state of Montana. You know, it's a place where simple people live their simple lives and deal with mostly mundane problems. And it is the exact place where I could see a pseudo-religious cult getting a big following. We play as Deputy. Our adventure starts when our mission of apprehending Joseph Seed goes awry. Players get stranded in Hope County, which turns out to be entirely controlled by the Eden's Gate cult. There are 3 provinces, each one controlled by one of Joseph's heralds. So naturally we have to defeat the heralds, regain control of the zones, and then we can face Joseph. Pretty simple structure for the plot. So let's talk about our antagonists, the Eden's Gate cult, Joseph Seed and his family, which are the heralds. There will be some minor spoilers in here, mostly about the structure of the story, not the actual events. If you haven't played the game and want to go in completely blind, then just skip story section and of course spoiler section. Timestamps are in the description.
Rook, I'm sorry. I thought they got you. Come on. Come on. Come on. Check the room, Rook.
Nowadays video games have this tendency of starting off really strong with a heavily scripted 30 minutes long explosive introductory section and then following it with a regular mundane gameplay. It is done to grab players' attention, show the very best game has to offer and raise the stakes. Far Cry 5 uses this exact formula to introduce our future foes and show players how hopelessly outnumbered they are. Joseph created this pseudo-religious doomsday cult, where he is some sort of a prophet using words of God and verses from the Bible to convince people to his cause. He speaks of a great collapse, an end of the world-like event that people need to prepare for. What's worse is the fact that this cult has been rising in power for years. Ignored at first as some crazy doomsayers, but then when Eden's Gate became stronger in numbers and got heavily armed, it was too late to stop them from assuming control over the land. I'm not sure if a scenario like this could happen in today's US, simply because how surveillance heavy the government of that country is. You know, if streamers are getting swatted over mere accusations, then if feds would cut up wind of even a small armed force in some region of a country, I'm guessing it would be dealt with really fast without prejudice. But I'm willing to let it slide, because Far Cry franchise should not be taken 100% seriously. It's more like a little bit twisted and chaotic version of our current world. You could also try to argue that while we are fighting our war against the cult, the government is occupied with the events happening on an international level. That's why they didn't intervene. Okay, then at least communicate the whole situation better, because some auditions aired in the in-game radio might not be enough for most players to get the memo. Each region of Hope County is controlled by one member of Seed family. What they all have in common is the fact that they are very manipulative, violent and twisted. And let's be real, those are the characteristics of every single main villain in modern Far Cry games. As I said before, we had Vaz to thank for that. He was the first modern successful twisted warlord. What's great in Far Cry 5 is the fact that each Eden's Gate Herald has also some other characteristics and, what's even more important, a different role to fulfill in the cult. It allows Ubisoft to explore the various ways of obtaining new members by the cults and to show their inner workings.
We are all sinners. Every one of us. You, me. Even the Father knows deeply of sin. It's a poison that clouds our minds. What if I told you could be free from sin? What if I told you that...
So, the youngest one, John Seed, is the most sadistic, but he masks it by using religious symbolism and rituals, such as confession of sins, baptism. He decides which sin dominates in a person's life and then carves it in their skin. He also creates cult propaganda to be aired on local TV networks about the miraculous power of yes, which should condition people to say yes to Eden's Gate agenda. The narrative segments when we encounter John focus on showing, in an overdramatized way, how real-life cults brainwash people by using religious symbolism. How easy it is to sometimes get people to confess their deepest secrets.
Every sin you've ever committed, no matter how petty, no matter how small, I will pull from you. Then we'll see if you're worthy of atonement.
Then we have Faith Seed. She's not a true member of the family. She got snatched by the cult when she was young. Joseph manipulated and brainwashed her, and right now she's doing his bidding. Faith is responsible for production and distribution of bliss, a strong drug that lets her control behavior of others, while also making them believe that they are living in this beautiful stress-free world. There is a strong commentary about addiction and abuse hidden in here. First of all, the recruitment to many criminal organizations is done by a drug use. It's much easier to control addicted people that will do everything to get that another dose. The other thing is a commentary on an addiction itself. There is a moment where we can try to rescue people from the bliss and they don't want to be rescued. They claim that they are happy while in reality their life falls apart. Now, this hit me and made me think. The self-assurance that I am happy therefore it can't be bad is a lie that addicts tell themselves. It's true for substance abuse, but also for other kind of addictions, like gaming. Listen, I do not have any psychological background, so I'm not qualified to talk in depth about addiction. But there was a point in my life when I was really close to losing grip on reality because I played video games too much. So the main lesson to take out from here is that not everything that makes you happy is good for you. Moderation is key. I got carried away, but it's good. If a game can make you think about things like that, then I perceive it as a success.
I know you've heard stories about me, that I'm a liar. A manipulator. I poison people's minds. Well, let me tell you a different story. A true story. There once was a young woman who had been ostracized by her community.
When it comes to Faith Seed, there is one more commentary piece about cults hidden in her story. It's about recruiting misguided, often lost young people. People that are vulnerable. Cults usually offer a sense of comfort, affiliation, and then the manipulation and indoctrination begins. Faith is this young, beautiful, playful girl. She promises you freedom, happiness. She dresses in white, symbolizing purity, while in reality she hides deception and abuse.
And then she met the father.
The third lieutenant is the oldest Seed brother, Jacob. He is a war veteran and is in charge of militarizing the Eden's Gate cult. Unfortunately, Ubisoft does not focus on that part, but more about his ways of training and conditioning cultists by repetition and habit. I'm just gonna say that it's also a shame that there is no player choice in Jacob's missions, because I actually realized what he was trying to do, yet you just can't resign from the assignments. Anyways, the trio left a strong impression on me. I feel like we actually get to spend more time with each one of them than with Joseph himself. He shows up from time to time during the story, but encounters with Jacob, John and Faith feel more personal. When it comes to Joseph, I will talk a little bit more about him and the game's ending in the spoiler section, later in the video. The Ubisoft design is very schematic. The story is also built in this way. In each region, there is a meter that will fill with each quest done, each outpost liberated, cult property destroyed. This is a 3-stage meter. With each breakpoint on the meter, there will be more enemies trying to kill us. Not only from the ground, but also from air. Navigation through the zone will be more difficult. Ubisoft's reliance on patterns really shows up in here. Close to reaching every breakpoint, or a short while after reaching it, we will be forced into scripted story section with a Seed family member. After the first 2 encounters, you learn the pattern, so whenever you are close to progressing on the meter, you know that a scripted section is coming. The way they introduce those parts is very similar, like the developers couldn't think about any other interesting ways to start it. Players usually get sedated or lose consciousness, so the enemies can capture them. It also begs the question, wouldn't it be more beneficial to just shoot the player while they are unconscious? Especially if it's later in the story when players already prove to be capable of successfully obliterating cult's operations. Why take the risks? I was exceptionally curious about how Ubisoft will tackle the story when I saw first Far Cry 5 trailers. There are so many interesting themes to explore, so many possibilities. But then came the interviews where developers and executives claimed that they do not want their games to get political. Are you kidding me? How do you expect to make games like this and avoid political commentary or themes? The same question can be asked about other Ubisoft titles. Watch Dogs, Hackers Against Corporations and Government, The Division. Even the newest Far Cry 6 has a dictator antagonist. Just embrace it. I think I know what's the problem. Developers choose to be cautious about political messages because we live in a crazy times. If you have an unpopular opinion, you can get cancelled in a day. That's a fair reason for anxiety, but I still believe that some themes could be explored more without taking a direct political stance. Don't get me wrong, I do not think that every game should get political, not at all, but when you choose a setting for your story like this one and then use suggestive imagery in your promotional materials, then don't be surprised when people ask hard questions. There could be more emphasis placed on the whole aspect of using religion by the cult. I also said before that the rural area is a perfect place for the cult to appear. Simple-minded people with lower education are usually more susceptible to manipulation. Unfortunately, Ubisoft's writers choose not to directly explore difficult topics in Far Cry 5. They hint at them. show snippets, but then before drawing any conclusions, they quickly redirect players' attention into mindless violence. The over-reliance on sheer brutality, action sequences and violence is used to mask a lack of substance when it comes to narrative elements. Tortures, executions, people burned alive. It's all used to enforce the fact that the Eden's Gate cult and its leaders are a group of despicable, sick and psychotic beings. And it feels like this was the goal, to create those memorable twisted antagonists. They are the focus of the story. Overall, the plot is okay-ish, but just lacks in substance. It delivers a memorable ending with interesting choice close to the finish. I know that I spent a lot of time berating the writing choices of the narrative team, and I seem to be very pretentious. That's because I can't get over how much potential for an incredible story was just thrown away. But I guess that's the thing with Far Cry games. They are supposed to be this mindless, explosive fun with some really strong, despicable villains. They touch on some interesting ideas, but never explore them. Masses don't want to think, they want to blow shit up. Inherently, it's not bad. Not every game has to touch on some hard moral choices. It's just a shame that Far Cry 5 meanders so close to some substantial topics and ideas, but is not willing to put more emphasis on those. Okay, main plot done. What about side content? There are plenty of side quests. Tasks given to player are usually kinda straightforward. What I mean by that is that there are very little multi-stage quest chains. Variety of side content is decent. Ubisoft's formula is visible again in here. Patterns show up. Even though there is variety, many missions play out similarly. There are some stationary defense quests where players have to defend a settlement or some key point. There are the usual kill assignments. Then there are more fanciful missions. Those are usually tied to a special named NPCs. There's a mission where players have to retrieve alien civilization artifacts for a scientist who is more of a conspiracy theories fan. Then there is a mission given to you by the cook to harvest some bull private body parts, so can prepare delicious meals. This task is actually interesting because the cook specifies that he wants 3 different types of bull's balls. One of that type was blue balls, or something like that, which meant that I had to approach a bull mating with a cow. I understood that literally, so I sneaked up to a bull that was, during the act, I crouched and tried to grab its balls. My astonishment was immeasurable and my day was ruined when it turned out that I just had to kill the bull and loot it after mating process and not actually try to pull and tear off its balls. Such a wasted potential. But it was fun task to do nonetheless. This mission can be used to show one interesting detail. A lot of side content offers more laid-back, lighter on tone humorous missions opposed to very grim and dark mind narrative adventures. Also, a lot of quest givers are those grotesque parodies of a simple-minded rural citizens, as stupid hillbillies. Not all of them, but a sizable portion of NPCs tied to side content just feels like juvenile comic reliefs. There is Hark, a 30-something-year-old man with a mind of a child. Zip Kupka, pyromaniac and government conspiracy theorists. There is a drug junkie enhancing our homeopathics. The list could go on. There is this discrepancy between the side content and main missions. The amount of really basic, juvenile jokes do not gel well with the violence and brutality of main story events. Listen, I'm all for juvenile jokes. I really like them, but there is a point when they become tiring, and I feel like Far Cry 5 comes really close to that point. I will just circle back to the whole non-political statements from Ubisoft. They can be undermined by some side content. For example, Sharky Boshaw asking if US is still ruled by the Orange Russian president. There's also this quest given to us by Hark Sr. He wants to take part in the upcoming elections. He's clearly a parody of a conservative political figure. Knowing that odds are not in his favor, he asks player to kill as many cultists as possible because they are not his potential voters. I didn't like the idea behind this mission. It also shows that Ubisoft is willing to get political in the areas where it fits the current political climate.
Gates would have had the drive to build one of the... How about you point that somewhere else?
Before someone will accuse me of some radical views or opinions, let me say that I do not hold Ubisoft's commentary or jokes against them. In contrary, I believe that the games are an art form. And whether the studio has some right-wing, left-wing or centrist opinions in their products, it should not be censored. You can like or dislike the product, but let's cut down that cancelling and censorship bullshit.
Built this place. You really want to turn your back on that? And what about all the times you talked about handing off the business to our daughter?
Oh, I talked about handing off the business to our son.
You've seen the ultrasound. It's a girl.
Well, that was on a messy black and white TV screen. You know them things ain't reliable.
Nick.
Okay, this is a spoiler section. I'm going to talk about the ending and Joseph's seed. If you haven't played the game and want to experience it on your own, skip this part. Compared to his siblings, Joseph commits to the role of a cult leader and a preacher. He is the one that unites people and manages the Eden's Gate cult. He is the one that relies the strongest on religious words and symbols. It's a shame that we interact with him mostly at the start of our adventure and then close to the end. The short encounters with him during his family storylines do not leave a long-lasting impression. Well, the story he tells you while our character is captured by Jacob actually left an impression. You know, the one about how he murders his own newborn daughter. It's just so over the top, just to show you how twisted of a character Joseph is. There's no subtlety, just a cruel story. After that, it's hard to sympathize with this man. So then, players will meet Joseph in front of a church where everything started. We are gathering for a final showdown. Some of our comrades are controlled by Bliss, some will help us from the get-go. Joseph tries to sway the narrative once again, to paint himself as a prophet and his siblings as martyrs. He creates a world where we, the players, are the bad guys in this story. Eden's Gate cult just wanted to prepare for the end of the world. They wanted to save people from impending doom. And it actually got me thinking for a second. But then I remembered all the cruel crimes the cult has committed. Tortures, genocides, manipulation, burning people alive. There is no good ending in this game. Whatever you will choose. If you fight Joseph, then it will turn out that he was right. Nukes start to rain down upon Hope County, but also the whole world. I have to admit that with the current way of real-world state, this is not a comforting form of escapism. Anyways, it felt like such out-of-the-blue narrative choice. Actually, the radio podcast and some other fairly hidden and uninvasive sources can tell players that when they fight against Eden's Gate, the whole world is falling into chaos. I think that there should be more visible hints about that international state of Far Cry's world, but I guess they didn't want to push this narrative too much because Ubisoft really likes their story twists in Far Cry series. You know, like with Pagan Min turning out to be your friendly uncle, while Sabal, Amita and your father were power-hungry warlords. The events happening in Far Cry 5 prepare the grounds for future release, Far Cry New Dawn. A game that I already own and one day I will probably review it. Spoiler section closed.
There's that noise.
Cult's out looking. They've got my wife up at the radar station.
The Ubisoft formula already can be seen in how the story is structured. But its main influence can be observed over how the whole gameplay is designed. Hope County is a big, sparse land. It can be overwhelming to some players. It's a staple in Assassin's Creed games as well as Far Cry that explorations focuses on climbing watchtowers in order to reveal all the surrounding markers on the map. Far Cry 5 deviates from this design. Well, it even jokes about it.
I know what you're thinking, and no. I ain't gonna have you climbing towers all over the county for me, so don't worry. Also, try not to fall from up there.
Some main points on the map will still be shown right away from the start, and of course, game handholds players when it comes to quest objectives, but the exploration is more rewarding. We are uncovering only our closest surroundings on the map, so in order to check and unlock some new area we need to physically get there. There are also cult notes scattered around the world. After reading them, some locations might be revealed on the map. Then there are random NPCs that will tell us about hidden stashes and other points of interest. Finally, there is more of a real exploration in this game, other than a blind tourist mode. This is a change for the better. There is also a cool addition to this system of conquering each of the 3 main map regions. I already told you that the further we will get in pissing off Joseph's lieutenant, the harder it will get to stay alive in a region. When we deal with a cult leader, the whole province will be free for exploration with minimal amounts of Eden's Gate cultists. There is also this pseudo-dynamic system of quests taking into account players' actions. Let's say that you are visiting Joseph Seed's region. There is a village called Fall's End. Citizens will broadcast SOS signal because they are attacked. You can get there and help them, or if you will focus on destroying cult properties, doing other side activities in that zone, then after you will progress enough, it will be revealed that thanks to your actions in other areas of John Seed's lands, the citizens were able to defend themselves without your direct help. There are few instances where this feature applies. In reality, it does not change much, but it's still a nice improvement because it enhances the feeling of the game's world being dynamic in reaction to players' actions. The gunplay and firearms variety stands on a really solid level. We can unlock new weapons while progressing through the main story. There are some limited ways of upgrading weapons. The same applies to vehicles. Far Cry 5 allows players to traverse its world in different types of cars and trucks. We can use boats and scooters to swiftly move through lakes and rivers. There are also different types of planes and helicopters if you want to soar through the skies. Of course, there is an in-game shop for real-world money if you want to buy some amazing skins. Thankfully, it's really non-invasive. I heard some opinions that it's hard to earn money in Far Cry 5. As a completionist, I did almost everything there were to do, so I did not have any problems with wealth. I guess that if you would have some problems with cash, then going hunting and skinning animals plus fishing and then selling everything is the best way to earn some additional money. Far Cry 5 offers a nice minigame in form of fishing. It's very simple. Player is just supposed to pull the rod in opposite direction as to where the fish is going and also to pay attention to the fishing line so it won't snap. I like fishing in this game. It's simple yet requires engagement from the player and also can be used to make in-game money. Great addition. Another nice addition to the game are the companions. There are 9 of them in total. Player needs to find them, finish their mission and then they become recruitable. You can also recruit some random members of Resistance if you want. Companions add a new dynamic into the game because they offer both a passive perk as well as different weaponry they use. So, Grace is a sniper. She one-shots her targets from a great length, but her shooting is slow, so in close combat she is not reliable. Then there is Boomer, a dog offering you passive wallhack, since he can smell close by enemies and highlight them for the player. Boomer can also fetch a weapon from time to time. Companions have their distinct personalities. Some of them are more serious, some of them like Herc or Sharky are more of a comic reliefs. What's cool is the fact that they tend to tell you stories about some places you visit together, or if you manage to unlock a perk for having 2 companions at the same time, they can engage in conversations with each other. Unfortunately, the conversation pool is kinda low on variety, so if you travel with the same set of partners, then you will hear the same dialogues very often. Ubisoft really likes to force some kind of RPG skill systems into their games. In Far Cry 5 we have a perk tab where we can unlock new perks. Those skills are pretty standard and not very game changing. It's mostly ammo capacity increases, faster reloadings, more HP and some other mildly interesting perks. This time players won't be forced to farm experience points in order to unlock new skills. They will be tasked with completing challenges or finding perk magazines hidden around the game's world. This is a refreshing choice because firstly, it encourages exploration and secondly, it motivates players to try different playstyles or different in-game activities. You see, challenges can be found in their separate tab. They are very similar to achievements, which means they award perk points for various undertakings. killing 10 enemies using shotguns, then another 10 by using SMGs, grenades, driving over cultists, skinning different kinds of animals, catching certain fish types. There is a big variety in challenges. It means that some of them will get completed naturally by playing the game, but if a player wants to really max out their perks, then they have to diversify their playstyle and explore some abandoned shacks or bunkers. I really appreciate this system. Far Cry 5 invites online co-op play. It also offers a map editor where players can create stages for online play. Those custom-made maps can be played in arcade mode, which pretty much is a multiplayer mode. Of course, if you want to play Far Cry 5 even through Steam, then you need to use also Ubisoft's launcher, which is greatly inferior to anything created by the civilized world. I found it extremely interesting that Steam regularly showed more than 3000 players in the game, but when I tried to find any online matches in arcade, it was pretty much impossible to find a game. I managed to get into some random team deathmatches by using online game browser. This was a pretty standard experience, nothing to write home about. It leads me to believe that most of those 3000 players probably just play in a private co-op lobbies.
What a blast!
Far Cry 5 offers a polished but still very schematic version of Ubisoft's formula. There are some minor variations here and there, but the principle is unchanged. Create a big world, fill it with different types of activities, populate the world with animals, enemies and NPCs, then insert the player and let the hell break loose. You see, the AI is pretty basic. Humans have some patterns of behavior towards each other, towards player, animals and enemies. The same goes for cult members and fauna. Ubisoft developers just decided to place them all into the game's world, spawning in their designated areas, hoping that their behavioral algorithms won't break. But it feels like there are very little safeguards and supervision or rules when it comes to NPC encounters. So what ensues is utter chaos.
There were a pack of wolves heading towards that conservation trail.
Hey! Help me!
I've never wanted to jump into a crate of vegetables before, but I'm just hungry enough to do it.
Good boy.
I have to admit, my first couple hours with the game were kinda annoying. There were very few places where I could freely roam the world. Each time I tried to cross the road or tried to drive a car, I was instantly attacked. And the fights were getting really long. Just as I managed to kill oppressors, another group came and the fight started again. Some of you might say that player is supposed to feel stranded and oppressed. I agree, but the sheer density of enemies I was facing felt like just too much. It was unreal. There was this situation where I was fighting on the road and on the two ends of that road there were mortars. I was mercilessly shelled from afar. So I got to one mortar and killed enemies there. Because it was hard for me to aim that thing, I decided to run to the second mortar battery to kill enemies there. Only to then find out that there was a patrol of cultists spawning on the first mortar position and now they were shooting at me again. When I got back to the first mortar, there was a group of enemies that showed up on the second mortar. It was bizarre. Maybe it was just bad luck on my part, because later in the game I haven't got that many of those obnoxious encounters. To be honest, with time I learned to appreciate the chaotic nature of Far Cry. It's kinda similar to the design of Skyrim. You have this web of NPCs, wild beasts and enemies roaming the world, and their paths inevitably will cross with each other. What happens then is just pure hilarity or some weird shootouts. Sometimes the AI breaks and just crashes a plane into a tree line without reason. When you go for hiking around Hope County's forests and mountains, you will constantly hear people calling for help after they were attacked by a pack of wolves, a bear or a wolverine. The amount of random things happening in this game is astounding. One time I was just peacefully fishing. Of course, I had to do it while crouching because otherwise Eden's Gate helicopters or planes would soon spot me. So, as I was saying, I was fishing. On the other side of a lake there was a merchant. Everything seemed to be calm, maybe even relaxing. Then BAM! Merchant on the other side got attacked by a bear. I was still fishing and at the same time watching a vicious spectacle of an NPC getting brutally mauled by a bear. Another story. I was hiking through the mountains and I had this realization that this in-game area reminds me of the real-life trails in the Tatra mountains. It was a beautiful landscape, so I decided to turn on recording to get some footage for the review. The moment I turned on recording, I could hear a helicopter incoming, and an indicator of slowly getting spotted popped up. I tried to hide, only to then get randomly attacked by a bear. Just see for yourself. Let's just say that the world of Far Cry 5 is extremely chaotic. I feel like the enemies, NPCs and animals are packed too dense, even for the massive size of Hope County. Chaos is overwhelming. It feels like this game was a basis for that weird Stranger of Paradise game.
Looks like chaos has been waiting for us. I want to kill chaos. Chaos, chaos, chaos. This is the Shrine of Chaos. Chaos. We're here to kill chaos.
I become chaos.
This is not a sandbox game, but because of the way it is designed, it gives a strong sandbox vibes. You can create your own fun without even following the missions. Maybe that's the reason why Far Cry 5 is still so popular and why there are still so many people playing it in co-op. It's just pure mindless fun, and when I accepted that fact, I started to enjoy this experience even more. Far Cry 5 uses Dunia 2 engine. This franchise relies on this piece of tech since Far Cry 3. It's responsible for in-game's physics, graphics, AI and a lot more things like, for example, fire spreading. Of course, it's being updated with each new release. In terms of its graphics, Ubisoft's title is solid. I'm taking into account the 2018 standards, since that's when the game was released. Main character models and their animations are fine, but models of other NPCs and enemies feel like they lack details. The absolute highlight of this tech are the beautiful vistas this engine is able to create. There were numerous occasions while I was exploring the map when I was just in awe of how beautiful landscapes this game creates. I also like the fact that Ubisoft tried to diversify Far Cry 5's regions in a believable way. You won't see a sudden desert just because it would spice up the game's world. No, the diversification is smooth and subtle. Holland Valley encompasses the numerous farmlands. Whitetail Mountains is a region with a lot of hills and dense coniferous forests. Heban River offers more of a steppe landscape with numerous bodies of water. It seems like this fictional county could really be a piece of land placed somewhere in Montana. This title also offers a fitting, well put together soundtrack. Main theme provides this rural American vibe. Combat music is definitely a highlight. It mixes a lot of country themes, cellos, violins with an explosive mix of electric sounds, maybe even a little bit of techno. I could feel Mick Gordon's Doom OST's influence in here. Maybe I'm wrong, but I got some nice vibes. I don't want to diminish Dan Romer's work. He proved to be an insightful and creative composer with his work on Far Cry. This title also likes to use some of the classic rock songs for its radio stations and also to highlight some story moments from time to time. Sound work and sound mixing is very competent. Animal howling, explosions, cries for help, it all works exceptionally well, not only in close vicinity but also on a greater distances. It adds so much depth and immersion into the game's world. You can hear a helicopter or a plane getting close to you, so you can hide. The shouts traveling through the mountains are impressive. I want to note the fact that weapon sounds are also very good. I really appreciated all of the clicking sounds when you are carrying a gun, which just enforced the idea of weight to whatever firearms player is carrying. From the technical standpoint, the game worked really well for me. No frame drops or crashes. Unfortunately, the design formula chosen for this game is susceptible for various bugs and glitches. First of all, I guess that a lot of foliage in this sparse, huge world was created automatically, which can lead to things like this. Grass, trees and bushes occasionally will not be leveled up to the right level with the ground. It does not happen often, but sites like this happen. AI in Far Cry is not the brightest. Enemies try to search for cover, wounded animals run away. Those are good, commendable things. But as I said before, this is a big open world and so many unspecified random occurrences can happen in it. Each of these situations can make the AI to just break. There are numerous instances of NPCs losing their path and blocking themselves on some obstacles. Cultists driving vehicles do not have any other animations until they get out of their cars or trucks. They are just so stiff and won't even flinch, so it's so easy to abuse them and just shoot them up while they are driving. This system is chaotic, but while some of it might be this way by design, I think that the main reason is the fact that we are not technologically at the point when simulating an open world can be done in a fully believable way. Just look at Skyrim or GTA. There is always an open space for some funny or weird glitches. However, if we put Far Cry 5 on a scale of open world simulations, it will definitely land pretty low compared to other games. Ubisoft games are very well designed when it comes to changing options and curating our gameplay experiences. There are a lot of options to turn on and off. All of them are described so everyone can make an informed decision. The whole settings menu is commendable in how accessible it is.
Whoa, okay, hang on, man. I got all kinds of shit flashing up in my eyes here. What the hell is this?
There are 3 paid DLCs released for this game. Right away, I'm going to tell you that by themselves, they are only mediocre, but I strongly believe that as a part of complete pack, they become a welcomed additions into the whole experience. Hours of Darkness is the first DLC. It changes the vast open world of Hope County to smaller scale open world of war-torn Vietnam. This is a story of Wendell Redler, a veteran known from the base game. The plot is really basic and it's being presented in form of comic panels, so a budget way to quickly put out a narrative. Our main goal in this DLC could be summed up as getting to the extraction point. On our way to it there will be many side activities that we can partake in. Of course they are formulaic, which means that one type of side activity will require us to do pretty much the same thing in different points on the map. Still, Vietnam jungles provide a refreshing take on the visuals. The engine shines again in those picturesque viewpoints. Other than that, there is an option of ordering an airstrike on a chosen location. We also get some new weapons to play with. In general, this is a quite short 2-3 hours experience. The new zone is commendable, but it's the same gameplay with a changed coat of paint. Lost on Mars is the second DLC. It tells a crazy story of Nick, Rye and Herc from base game going to Mars in order to save the Earth. You can already say that this whole experience will be very light in tone. At first I was annoyed that I will have to endure the whole expansion world of juvenile jokes, but I have to admit that after an hour on Mars I started to appreciate the humor and jokes of this DLC.
Why do you get to have all the fun? I've been trying to meet a Yeti my whole life. Do me a favor. Ask him if he likes to party. I know they do in my gut, but just ask him. I'm looking for some confirmation here.
Again, we are given a smaller size open world. Only this time, players will fight against crab-like alien creatures hiding under the sand. There is even this interesting mechanic where stepping on rocks is safe, but the moment you will touch sand with your boots, the enemies will start to crawl from under the ground. It can lead to an interesting "the floor is lava" gameplay. Unfortunately, the enemies are not fun to fight against. They are very fast, even on lower difficulties they deal a lot of damage and are very precise. Also, there is no foliage on Mars, so stealth approach is rarely viable. Queen encounters quickly get tedious. A new weaponry helps to alleviate this problem a little bit. Well, the first iteration of firearms are not that fun, but more crazy weapons can be unlocked later in the DLC, and those are fun to use. Lost on Mars also feels like it's a little bit longer. It takes around 4 hours to complete. A little bit more time will be needed for completionists. It's also my favorite expansion for Far Cry 5. As a side note, let's just notice that I praised the base game for its exploration, only for this DLC to go back to the franchise roots and require climbing through watchtowers again. Okay, last DLC, Dead Living Zombies. It's a pack of 7 scenarios which are based on crazy movie pitches given by the guy Marvel, a director known from the base game. All of those scenarios are linear and quite short. After completing them for the first time, we unlock a score attack mode. I believe that as a free addition into the base game, this would be incredibly fun and appreciated. But as a DLC valued to be worth almost as much as other content packs, it's just a slap to the face. The only redeeming factor is the narration of Guy Marvel over our gameplay, which can lead to some awesome changes that happen on the spot. This is an imaginative fun addition. And let me just say that Zombies DLC is the most lazy design choice. You take the AI, strip it of every intricate behaviors to make it blindly chase the player, because that's what zombies do. Then voila, quality gameplay. Ah, and all DLCs can be played in co-op, which is very good addition.
No dialogue needed here. Fuck, I love that there isn't much dialogue in this movie. It's just this badass character solving a mystery and kicking ass.
Let's take a closer look at some of the most recent Steam reviews for this title. Far Cry 5 is a very popular game on Steam, accumulating more than 110,000 user reviews. It sits at a score of 79% positive user opinions. So let's see what other people can tell us about their experiences with the game. As always, I do not think that my opinion is superior. I'm doing this because I like to compare my point of view with other people's opinions. The story is very divisive amongst the reviewers. Some people tout it as the best narrative arc in Far Cry series, while others claim that it's the worst. Inherently, it's just a matter of opinion. I give you my point of view and I try to justify it as best as I can. Let's see here. I picked those reviews because they strongly praise Far Cry's story. It seems like people really like how the antagonists play a crucial role in the story. One reviewer points out the commentary about the religion and the hypocrisy of some people hiding behind it. That's definitely an interesting take. Both of those reviews also encourage other people to play both New Dawn and Far Cry 6 DLC because they flesh out the history of a great collapse even more. It seems like Ubisoft actually achieved its goal with a memorable antagonist because even negative opinions praise the villains. The open world formula gets some fair share of criticism. Some people call it as boring, others use the word insignificant. What drew my attention is the lack of negative opinions talking about game not running properly. It's weird because all of the games I reviewed till this point had this issue. However, there's a lot of negative opinions talking about Ubisoft Connect. Yeah, I agree, that's a waste of space on your hard drive. To close this segment, let's just look at this review. This person noticed some stereotypes that prevail in Ubisoft's narration, but in general they liked the game. They also took issue with the Hark Senior mission, which was in poor taste. The soundtrack got praised, and then there's an interesting list of bullet points. Hats off to you, dear reviewer. I like this opinion. This is the achievement section of this video. I am going to talk about Far Cry 5's trophy progression. If you are not interested in that, feel free to skip. First of all, Far Cry 5 does not have its achievements integrated into Steam, which means that player has to rely on Ubisoft's launcher, which is terrible. I am going to be honest, if there are no Steam achievements, I find it really hard to care about unlocking trophies in game, but I still managed to get 74% completion. If you are a completionist, then you will need to own all 3 DLCs for the game. Each DLC offers 7 trophies to unlock, but before I will get to those, let's talk about base game. As always, there is a set of story progression achievements. Those get unlocked simply by playing main story. Then there are side content trophies. Some of them are tied to completing some side missions, while the others require you to clear a number of certain activities. Talk to 50 people, complete Clutch Nixon mission in each region, complete 3 treasure hunts, or liberate 5 outposts. Most of those achievements do not require players to actually complete all of the side activities from a given category, just a certain number. Far Cry also has some trophies tied to its arcade mode. Since it's really hard to find any people playing that mode, I just ignored those. Then there are other miscellaneous achievements. Most of them just require a bit of time and maybe cash farming. There is achievement for spending 1,000 in-game dollars on clothing, $50,000 on vehicles. There's a trophy for killing a bison with only melee weapons, and then another one for killing a bull with bare hands, which actually is not that hard when you use homeopathics increasing melee damage. Overall, I consider most of the game's achievements aside from the arcade ones to be decently easy. Each DLC offers a set of 7 trophies. They are constructed in similar vein as the ones in base game. The notable difference appears in Vietnam DLC because after completing it for the first time, it unlocks 2 new modes and there are separate achievements for finishing the runs in each of those modes. Zombie DLC offers separate achievements for meeting a special requirements in certain scenarios, like for example killing 10 gougers or hotheads with a tractor in Fields of Terror movie pitch. Then there is also an achievement for scoring gold medals in each scenario on Score Attack.
Definition of insanity is. Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy.
Many people like to use Va's iconic definition of insanity when talking about Ubisoft's game design. That is doing the same thing again and again, hoping for different outcomes. I believe they are wrong. Ubisoft is doing the same thing with each Far Cry release, hoping for exactly the same outcome, which is selling as many copies of the game as possible. They are not insane, we, players, are. Buying each release, hoping for something new and groundbreaking. I treat Ubisoft's games as a guilty pleasure, a formulaic open-world games with a decent production value and a different coat of paint with each release. I like mindlessly scratching off another checkmarks from the overworld map. It's a therapeutic exercise after playing more ambitious games. Far Cry 5 is a crowning example of a Ubisoft formula, a game design based on patterns and proven solutions. The gameplay is solid, world is quite big and offers some breathtaking views. Players can traverse Hope County in so many ways, on foot, by car, truck, plane, helicopter, boat or wingsuit. Gunplay is solid and makes retaking cult outposts interesting, especially since we can decide in which way we want to engage with the enemies. Story is okay, it mainly focuses on building up a gallery of manipulative, violent antagonists in form of Seed family. There is a little bit of commentary about inner workings of religious cults, which is great, but I just can't get over the fact that such an interesting story setting was left without much exploration of ideas and themes. It's style over substance. The DLCs for the game are mediocre on their own. As a part of Complete Edition, they are great. They offer more similar content in the new, interesting environments. Even though Ubisoft's old patterns of game design shows up at almost every step, the game is fun. And that's important. It's very chaotic and dumb fun, but still, I enjoyed my time with Far Cry 5. Therefore, a negative review about this game would not be fair. So it's a positive review, but not a fully fledged recommendation. It's just a dumb fun. Playing the game in co-op with a friend makes it double the dumb fun. I want to thank all of you for watching this video. If you liked it, press the thumbs up, subscribe and maybe leave a comment. If you didn't like it, then press thumbs down and definitely leave a comment. I'm open for critique. I will also place a link to my Discord in the description under the video. My question to you after this video is: how do you perceive Far Cry franchise? Do you think it's heading into the right direction, or is it finally time to break the Ubisoft formula and do something new? So that's all from me. Bye.